I'm Kristen Rivers, and this is my X-treme Makeover presentation for NU 713. Here you will find the table of contents. In this presentation, I will discuss a miscommunication that occurred in my workplace. My organization strives to provide a better way to care. Our company's values and missions revolve around displaying empathy and compassion to create an inclusive environment. We strive to make deep connections, listen, engage, and understand each other's needs. We strive for innovation by acknowledging mistakes and proactively searching for resolutions in the future. By the end of this presentation, you will understand how conversations in the workplace shape the culture, determine the difference between patterns of relating and patterns of meaning, understand effective communication through talking, listening, and being, and at the end of the presentation, I will rewrite the example of miscommunication that occurred to produce a better outcome using the tools we discuss. One morning, our hospice company received an admission referral from one of our partnering rehab facilities for a male patient who was unsuccessful with rehabilitation. He had a notable decline in health and rapidly declining prognosis. The family had chosen to return the patient home and seek comfort services via hospice. We received the referral with an attached note stating the patient wished to discharge home soon. This occurred on the last working day of the month. Marketers for both the rehab facility and hospice must meet monthly quotas. An order was placed for our contracted equipment company to deliver the necessary equipment for this patient to arrive home. When the delivery driver called the family, they declined delivery, stating that no one was home to let them inside. They requested delivery for the next day, saying the patient would not be home for several days. Around 3 p.m., the marketing team informed the rehab nurse that they had a new rehab referral that needed a bed, and this patient was ready for discharge. The rehab nurse was instructed to call EMS to transport him home. After calling EMS, they arrived within a few minutes to pick the patient up. The family contacted our office frantically when the patient arrived in the driveway. My manager called me stating I needed to get to this patient quickly as EMS had arrived and the family was upset. It took around 30 minutes to arrive at the patient's house as I had not been prepared for an admission and was on the other side of town. On arrival, chaos ensued. EMS was berating me, stating that they could not leave this patient safely as he was on 4 liters of oxygen and had no oxygen in the home. I contacted my management, informing them of the situation and the urgent need for oxygen. She shouted back, "I ordered it this morning. It should be there." Who even called EMS? He wasn't supposed to go home today. I informed her that I did not know but needed oxygen as soon as possible. EMS continued to be frustrated as a simple pickup and drop-off now utilized more resources than anticipated, keeping them from responding to incoming emergency calls. The family was distraught because the patient had been left on a cold, uncomfortable stretcher in the back of an ambulance. At the same time, I attempted to piece together the miscommunication that had occurred throughout the day. Management called me back to let me know the delivery driver was on his way. She insisted I call the rehab to see who gave them permission for discharge. The staff nurse had gone home, so they transferred me to the marketer, who had put everything into motion. She stated that she had a physician's order to discharge him home, so that is what she did. With the patient still in the back of the ambulance and EMS and the family looking to me for answers, I knew this was not the appropriate time to sort this out. Eventually, the oxygen arrived and the patient was transported inside. This miscommunication occurred for several reasons. There was a lack of or inaccurate discharge planning, staff pressure to meet quotas that was prioritized over our values and missions, poor communication between staff members, lack of reporting, and frustration amongst staff. Conversation within the organization. Some conversations typically overheard are feelings of too much to do and too little time, lack of understanding between departments and organizations, the company putting numbers and quotas before patient care, the feeling that workers are going in blind, and a lack of change or innovation. These conversations lead to a feeling of frustration, being overwhelmed, unsupported, lack of compassion from coworkers, lack of quality patient care, being unprepared and anxious, and hopelessness that things will never improve. Organization as a conversation. This is formed by 2 patterns, patterns of relating and patterns of meaning. Patterns of relating are how people within an organization interact with each other, forming the culture. Patterns of meaning refer to the organization's mission and vision and give meaning to duties and responsibilities that are occurring. These patterns must be emergent and transient with each interaction and often give way to new patterns of meaning or relating. Relational leadership moves away from the traditional leadership's mechanistic linear form. Through patterns of meaning and relating, relational leadership becomes improvisational with focus on the leader's potential rather than skill. Patterns of relating form an organization's culture based on how people are interacting. It defines power dynamics within the organization. These elements of power are constrained or enabled by others. Power will lean in favor of one person based on the needs of two individuals. There is no distinction between the we and I of the team. Some members may be included and others excluded, forming a strong sense of belonging. Within my example of miscommunication, there was no we, and each member focused on their own needs. Management was unwilling to assist in problem resolution, and marketing was solely concerned with meeting their monthly quota, leading to no sense of belonging to a team. Patterns of meaning are a social construct that forms the organization's mission, vision, and identity. This is formed from experienced conversations based on the choices and intentions of people within the organization. Patterns of meaning are created through relating and relational leadership. Meaning comes from a gesture-response interaction. Members exchange gestures, symbols, and responses through communication. And depending on the interaction, meaning is formed. In my scenario of miscommunication through a gesture-response interaction, I concluded that quotas and numbers were to be prioritized over patient care. This meaning does not align with our values and mission of a better way to care. Another core value for my organization is compassion, empathy, and understanding each other's needs. When I arrived at the patient's home without needed equipment, I was not met with compassion and understanding from management, but left to problem solve on my own, leading me to feel unsupported and isolated. Over time, these social constructs and interactions form a new meaning for the organization that may not align with the proposed theme the organization has set in place. Ways of talking, listening, and being. Ways of talking can reinforce and stabilize culture. When management was contacted regarding the missing oxygen, they had the ability to shape the meaning of our interaction. With compassion and empathy for the situation I was facing, they could have offered support. However, the I was prioritized over we. Each conversation impacts values and social norms within an organization. Every conversation that took place this day from management to marketers did not uphold our company's core values and began to shape the existing norms. Talking can persuade, motivate, and control situations to reinforce the relations and meaning within an organization. Listening is a collaborative process that utilizes gesture-response interaction. Listening should be done intently with no distraction. When management was contacted regarding the lack of equipment, other questions were brought up, and I felt my concerns were not heard. They did more talking than listening and were preoccupied with how this occurred rather than helping me reach a resolution. Ways of being or mindfulness are founded on being aware and awake and providing an opportunity to contribute. In this scenario, the miscommunication, no one was aware of the problems at hand and were only concerned with their roles and duties. Innovation should use both and thinking, rather than either or thinking. Both and thinking allows for more than one idea to be presented and seen as right. It holds both perspectives as useful and valuable despite being different. Innovation often emerges from misunderstanding. Davidson asked his readers to identify a great innovator. Most of us know someone who has an innovative nature and often brings excellent ideas to the table. Innovators often participate in workplace conversations, relate to others, and say yes to the mess. The concept of saying yes to the mess comes from the usual disorganized, anxiety-ridden task behind innovation, and implies that great innovators can persevere despite a lack of control. One of the greatest feats to successful innovation is trust. When workplace gossip began regarding the miscommunication that had occurred with this hospice admission, many nurses expressed innovations to prevent this from happening in the future. An email thread circulated with great ideas for a report sheet or checkoff list to occur before EMS could be called for transport. The organization's leader acted as if these ideas were senseless and was dismissive to the staff who presented the ideas. Changing the story with conversation. A few ways to change the story with conversation would be to listen to the patterns and themes of the organization. Aim to change staff's feelings and determine where these feelings are being formed. Many coworkers often describe feelings of frustration, being overwhelmed, unsupported, unprepared, anxious, and hopeless for improvement. Build on patterns of relating and meaning. Changing patterns of relating and meaning can occur with effective communication by ways of talking, listening, and being. Establishing we relationships where members feel included and uphold the company's mission and values. Rewriting the story, patterns of relating. In order to have effective relationships, each person cannot do as they please, but are constrained by the relationship. This is especially important concerning power. Thinking and acting should not be done for the individual, but for the we as a collective group. This forms a sense of belonging. In rewriting this story, the members need to shift thinking away from I and towards we. This will bring about a feeling of belonging and move the company away from a mechanistic, linear leadership style to a more relational form of leading. In this story, the group needs to collectively work together to strive for better patient care and problem solving, rather than focusing on what each individual's role requires. Patterns of relating to one another will foster empathy, compassion, cooperation, and negotiation. Elimination of shame and jealousy is essential for promoting innovation in times of disorder. Rewriting patterns of meaning. Patterns of meaning should support the organization's theme, vision, and mission. My organization strives to provide a better way to care, yet this patient was left without necessary equipment due to quotas and frustration amongst staff. Changing this story using patterns of meaning would require staff and leaders to evaluate if their intentions and choices are aligning with the organization's mission and vision, or if themes were straying from these expectations. Pattern gesture interactions are most at fault for influencing the organization's theme if these interactions and communication are not aligning with the vision and mission set out by the organization. By focusing on patterns of relating and effective communication, patterns of meaning can be reshaped to form a theme within the organization that better aligns with its vision and mission. To rewrite this story using talking, listening, and being, changes in patterns of habits of talking must occur. Being aware and choosing our words intentionally can prevent us from falling into comfortable ways of talking that are not what we intend. Listening must be done intently with no distractions. When management was contacted, they could have utilized empathetic listening, not focusing on their own agenda, but rather what was trying to be communicated to them. Regarding mindfulness, we need to be present, aware, and awake. This will allow everyone to contribute to the organization. Rewriting innovation. As previously mentioned, several staff members brought forth valuable ideas to prevent this error from occurring in the future. Identifying the misunderstanding or what led to the problem to start with is the first action for innovation. Management was quick to dismiss the issue almost as if it hadn't occurred. Leaders do not take advantage of the strong innovators presented to them and were dismissive, shunning staff, which will prevent them from offering ideas in the future. If management had utilized both and thinking to acknowledge that there may be more than one solution to the problem, innovation might have occurred. Rewriting the story using what we've learned. Our hospice company received a referral from a partnering rehab facility for a male patient who was unsuccessful with rehabilitation, had a notable decline in health, and rapidly declining prognosis. This family had chosen hospice services and requested to return the patient home soon. With the company values of a better way to care in mind and the marketer needing to meet her monthly quota, she reached out to management to let them know discharge could be today. An order was placed with our contracted equipment company to deliver the necessary equipment. When the delivery driver called the family, they declined, stating that no one was home to let them inside. Later that day, the marketer received a referral for a rehab patient and told the rehab nurse that this patient needed to be discharged because she needed the bed. The rehab nurse was instructed to call EMS, and shortly after, the patient was transferred home. The family contacted our office frantically when the patient arrived in the driveway. My manager called me, stating that I needed to get to this patient quickly as EMS had arrived and the family was upset. During the initial call, management determined the issue and informed me that the family had turned down the equipment. She had already contacted the delivery driver, and they were 15 minutes away. Because I had been prepared for a possible discharge, I arrived quickly to assess the situation. Due to my quick arrival, EMS was calm and stated that they could not safely leave this patient as he was on 4 liters of oxygen and had no oxygen in the home. I informed EMS that our delivery driver should arrive shortly. I quickly identified where the lapse in care occurred and was able to console the family until the equipment arrived. After the patient was settled inside the home, I spoke with management, the marketing team, and the rehab center. We established guidelines to prevent this situation from occurring again. A reporting system was implemented to ensure every team member was prepared for a patient's discharge home before EMS was dispatched. The equipment company now has a protocol for contacting management if family members deny or delay equipment delivery. By utilizing patterns of relating and meaning, effective communication, working as we instead of I, and fostering innovation, we were able to diffuse the situation, upholding our company's values and mission of a better way to care, while also fostering compassion and understanding between team members. We followed up with innovation to prevent this from happening in the future.